Call Village of North Fond du Lac Village of Trustee Board meeting to order, Monday, July 15, 2019. Audience members are requested to sign in the sheet provided at the registration table. Citizens wishing to be heard on topics not listed on the agenda may speak under item C. Citizens may be given an opportunity to speak during discussion of items listed on the agenda and are allowed 3 minutes for comments. Disruptive discussion or profanity will not be allowed. Roll call of officers.
Morning.
Here.
Price.
Here.
Streeter.
Here.
Stutz.
Here.
Will.
Here. Stand for the pledge.
Okay. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pictures of habit.
I might have to watch that when you put that on YouTube then.
Changing things up.
Citizens participation. Any citizens wishing to be heard? No. So we'll skip that part. Announcements, communications. Anybody? Got anything? All righty. President's business and staff reports, library. Anything from them? Okay. Lakeside Municipal Court. Nada.
So Chief Plants from the city of Berlin is retiring on the 20th. So
Microphone's probably not on.
it's yeah, so he's retiring, and we're gonna once they appoint an interim chief, we'll end up going and meeting with them and the city attorney and city administrator to go over all the court procedures and stuff. This Thursday, the Judges Association, which was it's the legislative committee that Judge Jay has been on for 15 years or so. They're meeting with the Judiciary Committee in Madison to discuss the trailer bill to the Wisconsin Act 402, which was the bill to revise the court procedures. And the bill contains 44 different sections, so I'll start reading those now.
Wonderful.
Just a couple of the things. It would require that there would be armed officers in the courtroom for court proceedings, which doesn't affect us because we already have that, but there's a lot of courts in the state that don't have it, and it's kind of important. It also would have the probable cause citations stay with the OWI if it gets transferred to circuit court. Right now, if it gets transferred, the OWI goes to circuit court, and we keep any of the other citations, and we kind of sit on them until they go through their thing and everything gets resolved. So it would just be easier for everything to go over at the same time. And let's see with that. If a municipal court trial, if the defendant is found guilty, right now they can appeal it to the circuit court and request a jury trial. The bill would change it so that the only time that a person could request a jury trial would be 10 days, within 10 days of the initial appearance. They wouldn't have the option to have the jury trial afterwards to appeal it, which would alleviate quite a few of the trials, especially in Fond du Lac, because a lot of the attorneys will just appeal right away, so they kind of use this trial as discovery. And then the State Assembly has approved 2 bills that would stiffen the drunk driving penalties. It would require a person that got arrested to appear in court, and if they didn't appear, the court could still default them, but then they would add a $300 surcharge, and that would go to the county to be used for drug and alcohol education purposes. And that would also eliminate the law that allows, this is confusing, it would eliminate the law that allows second offense to be treated as a civil violation rather than a misdemeanor if the first offense took place at least 10 years earlier. So if somebody got an OWI and they had an OWI over 10 years ago, this OWI would be a first offense. If they get a second offense, it goes all the way back and it brings that first offense back in, so then this one would be a third offense.
And there's no time limit on that?
No. Well, the only...
I mean, it's not like 10 to 20 years, it's just
Right, yeah.
whatever, okay.
And then it would also, the second bill would establish a minimum 5-year jail sentence for anyone convicted of homicide by intoxicated use of a vehicle. So those two have passed the assembly, and they're going to be going to the state senate next.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Administrator Nick.
Yeah, thank you. Chris and I met last week with McClone. McClone is basically our insurance broker for all of most of our insurances, and just started discussions. We really don't have any renewals at this point or any ideas. We're starting the process because we do a September 30th renewal, so October 1st is when the new insurances kick in. So we want to get ahead of that so we can get all those numbers in and get to the board prior to that October 1st date. So we started those discussions. I also met with RMM last week, had a phone conference with them about one of our servers, 2008 server, I think, that needs replacement because they have end of life type dates on them where they're no longer supported, and that one is going to be no longer supported as of January 1. So we're kind of working our way through that to figure out what the best scenario is. As mentioned last week in my weekly report, I will be in Green Bay all week for clerk school, clerk training, which is my year 2 of 3. So it's a week-long, long days, but I will be available by email if need be. I will be responding to emails. The other thing I mentioned here is the 2020 budget. I did pass out a schedule to the board members and staff. And I just want to make a couple notes on here. You'll notice September, because of Labor Day, the first Monday is a holiday, so my proposal is to just move everything back 1 week and do the second and fourth Monday, if everybody's okay with that. We don't need to decide that tonight, I guess. Maybe if you have conflicts or with that, if you could let me know. We could also do the 9th and the 16th, which would be the normal. 16th would be a normal meeting. It's just a little bit easier from staff standpoint to get, a 2-week break between meetings. A little bit easier to get things prepared and for the next meeting, but we're kind of open. We could also do September 3rd, which would be a Tuesday. So I don't know what the board wants to discuss right now and talk about that. Will not work for you. Okay. And I don't have the departments listed here, but I would like to do it the same way we did it last year, where I'll have 2 or so departments presenting their budget on these meetings. That's what those 3 meetings would be for. So it would be probably best if we could have a full board in all those meetings. So it's
Tuesday does not work for me.
Okay.
Any Tuesdays.
So does the 16th, if we did the 9th and the 16th, does that work for everyone?
Sure. That works for me.
Okay, we'll plan on that then. Then the other date you'll see on here is the 14th of October. Now we have, the reason for that is my own, I'm gone on October 21st. I'm out of the state. So that is kind of a big meeting there with it proposed the way it is right now. It'd be our budget CIP review, kind of the final review before we would have our public hearing.
I'm also gone that day.
Okay. We can work around any other dates. I am just not available on the 21st for that regularly scheduled board meeting. We can try and bump everything up if we need to, but I kind of want to get this taken care of so the staff is prepared for the meeting. So you're gone on the 14th?
Yes,
Randy?
I am.
Okay.
Yes.
The other option, we could try and get everything taken care of on the 7th. We could use the 2 departments in a final review. The only problem with that I could see is if, depending on the departmental discussions for that certain department, it could create some issues. So the other thing, Randy, I guess, being that the 14th is the final review, maybe you could communicate that via email for that final review, or would you rather?
Well, I guess,
It's still public hearing. There's still a public hearing meeting.
what about the 21st?
Well, I won't be here, and that's.
Oh, you're not gonna be here the 21st?
I'm not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's why I changed the date, so. And you certainly could do it without me, I just think it's probably best that I'm here.
I mean, I'm out in New York City, so,
Yeah.
we can certainly.
Well, what I'm suggesting is you could communicate any issues you have
Right, I
prior to
could,
that
yeah,
meeting.
I could.
Because you still
via
do
email,
have the
sure.
opportunity on the November 4th would be our public hearing.
Oh,
And
sure.
there's still discussion there. We
Okay.
can still discuss it there. Is that okay with you? If we would
Yeah, that's
do the
fine,
14th?
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if that's okay with the rest of the board.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, well then we'll follow that schedule. We'll just we'll modify the 23rd of September to the 16th of September. That'll be the plan then. And then in that case, we would not have a meeting on the 23rd unless need be, September. We will, in that we would also probably likely not have one on October 21st. Okay?
You're gonna like update the website.
I will, yep, we'll make sure of that, yep. We don't generally put the dates out there too far in advance, but
Okay.
we'll get this updated. That's all I had.
All right. Anything from the police department?
Yeah, so he's out of the office this week also. We handed out the June activity report for the police department. He also had updated that he had made a conditional offer. All the tests came back looking good. He's just waiting on a final report from the psych exam, so that's looking good. And he was on Behind the Badge last Friday on, it's KFIZ.
Yeah.
And he mentions that the National Night Out will be Tuesday, August 6th.
Is that it?
That's it for me.
All right. Fire and Matt, Steve?
Thank you. The only thing I really have is we're gonna have another blood drive on September 11th from 12 noon till 5 p.m. at the community center again. The difference with this one is the American Red Cross has a scholarship available to high school students that are juniors that are going to be seniors this year, or it's coming up school year. And depending on how many donors come, it depends on how much money is given in the scholarship. So we'll be setting up a program with the Key Club through the school district to get students involved and try to get them a scholarship. So other than that, it's supposed to be warm the next couple of days, so make sure that everybody stays hydrated, and that's all I got.
Thank you. Public Works, Derek.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. You'll see that the Public Works crew has been out cutting and removing ash trees. We're concentrating on areas that the trees are populated more, and we're trying to get more done in that one time without moving the lift all around town, chasing just the dead trees. The trees that are starting to die and starting to wilt, we're taking those right away too now. Where before we were just taking the worst first, now we're just starting to take everything because they're all gonna have to go. So, my plan is to try to be cutting for the next few weeks, at least 3 days a week, to removing ash trees, getting aggressive at it, getting a lot of dead ones out of the village. Other things we're working on, we have a bunch of catch basins, approximately 12 of them throughout the village, that we have to rebuild the catch basin. Walls are starting to fall in on them. They're starting to get a pothole next to them in the street, so we're working on those. And then last week, we replaced 4 manholes out along Pioneer, manhole top sections, along Pioneer Road and Rolling Meadows Drive. Ones on Rolling Meadows are located out in a field, and the farmer had hit them and knocked them off their bases, so they were basically open leaks until we got them repaired last week. And I've been working on some DNR and EPA reporting for some of the water testing that we're required to do. And along with, we still have an open janitor's position. I'm still taking applications until I fill the position. And we had talked about the open crewman position, just hiring a seasonal position until November. I got a few applications for that late last week, and I need to review those and start interviews for that. That's what Public Works has been up to.
Thank you. Consent agenda, approve the minutes of the following board meetings from June 24th and from July 1st. Approve invoices and authorized checks to be drawn on the respective funds as indicated. General fund, $140,669.44. Outdoor rec, North Fondy Fest, $940.93. Library fund, $1,211.54. EMS fund, $3,767.79. Water department, $20,063.52. Wastewater department, $2,248. Stormwater fund, $1,642.67. Community Development Authority TIF, $36.84 for a grand total of $170,580.73. And also approve the following operator license for Alexis Weber for Riser Store on Stretch. What's the board's pleasure?
I'll make a motion to move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Got a second?
I'll second that motion.
Got a motion by Will, second by Stas to approve the consent agenda. Are there any questions?
I just got one
Mike?
question. Civil systems, what is that?
Civic Systems is our accounting software for all of our, it's our computer system for payroll, utility billing, all of our general ledger accounts. It's a large, maybe if you recall, we upgraded that a couple years ago. We upgraded that system. It was a pretty large expense, but that's actually, that is not the upgrade, that's the annual maintenance on that.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Anybody else? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Administrative, discussion on fund balance policy.
Chuck had asked me to put this on the agenda for just to kind of start the discussion. What I have in here for an example is what John Radar from Baker Tilly had given me as an example of a village he had worked with. He thought this was one that maybe suited us, similar to what we were looking for. If you recall, we asked about this during the review. So if you read this, basically what they say down at the general fund section is that they're looking to have a minimum of 35% up to a maximum of 40% of the following year's ensuing budget, general fund budget, I'm assuming in their case, total amount in their unassigned. So what I did is I put together just a real quick snapshot of what we've had in ours as unassigned. Now unassigned, there's a difference between unassigned and unrestricted. We had that discussion the other night. The unassigned is truly what's available, that's not assigned to anything. What unrestricted, the unrestricted portion can include, dollars that are maybe set aside at designated funds, or, we do a 2-year borrow, we have money that isn't going to be spent till next year. That's truly unrestricted, however, it's not unassigned. So the unassigned is truly what's kind of available to the village. So if you look at this, their suggestion, this policy says 35% is kind of their target goal with a maximum of 40%. If you look at ours, what I did there is go from 2014 to 2019. These numbers were readily available to me through the audit books I had available. So I went through them all quickly and looked at our unassigned fund balance, and as you see, from 2014 to 2019, it's grown considerably. And Chuck, remind me, but I believe even prior to that, it was at times a little bit lower than the 508. Yeah.
For sure.
So what I did then is converted that to the same percentage that they have in this policy. So that's down on the bottom. So as you see right now, if we look at 2019, our budget for this year is $3.5 million for the general fund. And at the end of 2018, we had 1.273 million of unassigned reserve. That's 35.9%. So according to this policy, now I'm not saying that our policy needs to be exactly the same, we would be right in line with where they want to be. And in fact, we wouldn't be to the point yet where we'd be taking some of that money, as you had suggested, and using it for capital. So I don't know, Chuck, if you want to add to that thought.
Well,
discussion.
the reason I'd asked, put it on there is the fact that, it's like having a lot of money somewhere that's, we really could use other places. We could use it for capital projects, we could use it for lowering the levy, anything like that, rather than have this large amount that's more that probably is even recommended. Because when John Rader gave his presentation, he showed where the median is, where most people are at, and we're very healthy, way above that. So the question was, do we want to consider a policy like this where the rules are set? And not saying we have to abide like Nick said, but when it gets to that point, anything above that, we would take that amount over that off and use it for some capital expenditure, reduce the borrow that we're going to do, things like that. So it just seems like that once you reach that threshold, that money is really not gaining a heck of a lot of interest, so it's probably better used for something else.
Randy?
We've done this in the past, haven't we? Or not? No, this is the first time that.
We have used excess reserves to
Right.
purchase things, but we haven't ever had a policy.
Having a policy, okay, thank you.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I mean, I remember that there has been some discussion in the past that we've used some of this, but so we really never had a formal policy, is that right?
We have not.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but in the last couple of years, we've done some of that. I think we bought that public works truck with some of the fund balance, 155. I have no problem doing it. I think it makes sense. I don't know if I like the idea of having a policy to tie our hands up where it has to be something. I'm okay with moving it down some, but I don't know if I like a policy that would say this is what it has to be. But I do understand it's not your concept.
Well, you know, I think maybe what you're referring to, if I remember correctly, in our capital fund, sometimes you budget for a certain amount, and it comes under budget, so that was building up, and that's when we use that excess fund for that. It really wasn't the general fund balance, that was the
Okay.
capital fund, if I
Yeah,
understand.
you're right, you're absolutely right, Chuck.
So, you know, and so again, this is just,
So Chuck, so
and it's not saying that you have to do, well, if it's a policy, you'd like to do it, yeah, it's just something that keeps, it's out there for use to do this, you know, and I think it's maybe just a good policy to manage the funds, so.
Nick,
Yeah, and adding to that, and Mike, what you were saying, that I think the thought process here is, I could think of a scenario where this would be a great policy to have, whether, I mean, even if it's 40%, we're not quite there yet. So not, at that point, you have quite a bit of money sitting in there. And in the case of the village, basically we borrow for our capital every year, right? So we borrow that money. Well, we might have, I mean, there's a possibility without a policy like this that you could have $3 million sitting there and you have, 60% of your budget sitting in a reserve account and it's not on the capital side. This policy kind of forces that hand, saying, you know what, you've got too much, stop the borrowing. So I do see the benefit to it. I mean, it kind of controls that. You never know what the board, you never know what the administrator's thought processes are. I don't disagree with maybe having a policy. This policy to me, when I saw the numbers, the way they shook out, it was like, well, we're right where we need to be according to this policy. So at this point, I talked to Chuck last week about putting this on the agenda, and I haven't had time to really analyze this or put together a policy of our own. This was just kind of a start for discussion.
I mean, I think it's a good idea to be, talking about this, I mean, for us and for future boards, so, is there for those guidelines, so, Chuck, thank you first.
When John talked about this at his presentation, is this the only policy he sent you?
It's the only one he sent me.
Okay,
Yep.
just wondering if there's some options there.
Ann?
I mean, I agree with Chuck 100%. I think a policy is good to give us some visibility and something for us to think about, because otherwise we might let it just build up, It doesn't say what we have to use it for. I mean, it just tells us that that's a guideline for us, and I think it makes sense, because it doesn't do anybody any good to have it just sitting in a bank account.
We also could use it for maybe offsetting some tax increase too.
Absolutely.
We could use it
we
to,
could use
sort
it
of
for
going
that.
up a certain percentage, we could use it to offset that. I would really favor that avenue also.
So is everybody on board? Everybody okay with it?
Discussion on the policy, I guess, we're not.
What-
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it could, so I guess at this point, if it sounds like the board would like to continue discussing this, I will try to come up, I'm not crazy about how they approach this annually. I would rather just use the audited amount and compare it to the current year budget rather than, they want you, they basically say that we need to estimate a surplus. I would just rather use, because it can be a difficult thing estimating a unassigned reserve without being an auditor.
Yeah.
So I would just prefer there's a few things in here I don't agree with the way they're doing it, so if the board wants to continue, it sounds like we do, I'll start coming up with some language and putting it, and should I kind of start with this target? I think this is a good number in my opinion.
I'm gonna look at our financial statements again a little bit more, because I think, again, I think there's a balance as to when it's a little excessive.
Yep.
And I'm not sure 40%, at least in my opinion, is a little high, but
Yeah.
I'm not ready to say it is, I just think I need to analyze that a little bit more.
Because I felt like when they were here, I got the impression from them that it was high, so I was surprised to see these numbers were in line with where we are, because I felt like I got from them that we were
Yes.
high, or,
And I suspect that this is one of these scale of economy type things. I have a suspicion that this community, maybe their general fund budget is $1 million.
Sure.
Where ours is $3.5 million. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's that.
Very true.
So I suspect I don't know anything about this village. He didn't tell me anything about it or where it was from. So I would agree with that. It might be just that it kind of scale, that size thing.
Cause at this point, sorry, at this point, we could reduce our borrow, like, cause do we do the borrow now?
Yep, it'll be, October.
And if we use that last year balance, I mean, it would sort of work out from a timing perspective, I mean, if that's what we chose to do.
Yeah, we'll be borrowing this September, October, November for this year and next year.
Yeah, so it gives us good visibility with the timing of when they're completed and kind of how that cycle works.
Mhm.
Chuck?
You know, it's a good problem to have. You know, I mean, it's definitely something that I think, that, well, like John has said, that the village is in a good state right now. We're doing well, and it's a good discussion. Thanks.
I'm just gonna say it one more time, I do agree with it, but I don't like putting things in stone where it ties our hands. I do understand, you know, not having this amount of money sitting around, but I don't like the idea that directs us. I know we direct future boards and all that stuff too, but I do understand it.
Anybody else? We'll move down to resolutions. Discussion and possible action on resolution 10-2019, resolution establishing a replacement fund for collection system and operations manual for the wastewater utility.
This is an annual report that Darren has to do for our collection system. We don't have a sewer plant here, so it's just our collection system, and this is just part of that regulation. We need to have establish a replacement fund, and this is just an annual resolution we need to do in order to do that.
Are there any questions? All right, need a motion to approve resolution 10-2019.
I make a motion to approve resolution R-10-2019.
You got a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, you got a motion by Price, second by Stutz to approve resolution 10-2019. Any other questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Number 2, discussion and possible action on resolution 11-2019, resolution public participation procedures for the Village of North Fond du Lac 2040 comprehensive plan update.
This is obviously for the comprehensive plan update the Plan Commission has started working on. This is part of the process, and that just acknowledging the participation plan. The Plan Commission has talked about this in their first initial kickoff meeting about the process in which we are trying to get public input on the plan, and this is just making it a resolution that the village board is adopting.
Chuck?
I would guess that East Central this is a template, it's pretty standard, I would guess that.
It is, but it's the methods we discussed at the Plan Commission. It is, but they modified it to meet what the Plan Commission wanted.
Are we getting any surveys back yet?
We actually don't even know yet. They haven't communicated that with us.
Gotcha.
He's been out of the office, and there's still a few questions we're tweaking slightly before we really get the push out there, so.
Okay. And where are those gonna be available?
It'll be on the web, obviously, mostly on the web, but we'll have them available at the library and the village hall too, also with the paper copies.
Anybody have any questions regarding this, Chuck?
With the villager going out, is there any timing wise that should be?
Yep.
It's gonna be in there, just
Yep.
mention that. too.
And the water bill's going out the end of the month.
All right.
Yep.
Anybody else have any questions, comments? All right, need a motion to approve resolution 11-2019.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution R11-2019.
Do I get a second?
I'll second that motion.
Got a motion by Horning, second by Price to approve resolution 11-2019 for establishing the public participation procedures for the Village of North Fond du Lac 2040 comprehensive plan update. Any other questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Communications, anybody have any communications? Any new business? Got a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
Okay, a second?
I'll second that motion.
Got a motion by Horning, second by Price to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thanks for coming.